minus 10 minutes. Minus 9 minutes. Minus 8 minutes. Minus 7 minutes. minus 5 minutes. Minus for minutes. Minus 3 minutes. Minus 2 minutes. Minus 1 minute. Stand by.
How about that?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a Footy on the RP Show. I may need your help. We'll see. As usual, we're coming to you live from the Golden Ticket Sports Center in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. It's a Football Friday, and we're changing things up. There is no Moose. Why is the camera all cockeyed? We got him. Okay, we don't have Moose, but we have a very special guest going to be joining us here today, right off the hop. He is a Canadian Football Hall of Famer. He is the associate head coach, assistant head coach with the Florida A&M Rattlers. Ta-da! The smiling one, Henry Burris. How you doing, Hank?
Hey, good. How you guys doing now? How you guys doing up there? I guess I got to say for you right now.
We're doing great. It's a beautiful Saskatchewan summer. You've experienced a few of those. And, Henry, I appreciate you coming on today on a Football Friday here live across Canada on the Game Plus Television Network and across 32 U.S. states. Henry, what are you doing today? What's a guy like you, a man about town, getting up to on a Friday afternoon in Florida?
Well, just gearing up for the season. I mean, we're 2 weeks away from the players reporting to camp. Typically for us, we always report a month out from our first game, of course, which is going to be August 30th down at Miami Hard Rock Stadium. And I'm coming to your backyard, buddy. And we play the Howard Bison for the Orange Blossom Classic. It'll be on ESPN. 55, 60,000 people will be in the stands. But just gearing up for that, getting the schedule together, getting the final touches on the playbook all set up, and just enjoying the evolution and impacting these young men down here.
I love it. I love it. So we got extended time with Henry Burris. We got 40 minutes of him in the place of Darren Dupont. So I know the guys have prepped you for that. I will say this. We open the show with the quick six show topics. This is my show horn. The big story, we opened with the Canadian Football League, Henry, a thriller in Montreal to open Week 7. The Alouettes came back for a 26-25 victory over the Toronto Argonauts Thursday night. Montreal scored 12 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. Quarterback Davis Alexander ran in the go-ahead touchdown with under 2 minutes to go, but then suffered a hamstring injury on the play. I will ask you this. Everybody's raging about the game. Are you following the CFL and even that game last night in Montreal?
You know what? Last night, I watch every CFL game that comes on, whether it's on CFL Plus or, of course, on CBS Sports here in the U.S. But last night, I watched the game up until about, the fourth quarter, because I thought Toronto was going to run off and win the game. And for myself being here, having to wake up at 5 in the morning most of the times to get ready for early morning workouts for the guys just to be present, I actually left the game before the fourth quarter started, and Toronto had a commanding lead. And I woke up this morning and I saw a shot of Davis Alexander on Instagram saying 8-0 now as a start. I'm like, hold up, what the heck just happened? But it just goes to show you just the package and the entertainment that you get from the CFL game, and you can never say die, especially with a team that's led by Jason Moss and also Davis Alexander, who made plays both in the pocket in the air and also using his legs, of course, to close it out with that scramble. But, the kid he's a battler. I mean, that's a team that's been battle tested. They won Grey Cup championships together, and that kid is just following suit. And you can definitely tell that Jason Moss's presence is definitely following that young man, and he's done a great job of responding to the excellent coaching that he's received.
So much to unpack with the smiling one here this morning in hour one of a Football Friday. And listen, I mentioned in my morning commentary that airs on Saskatchewan radio that maybe we'll finally get Henry to admit or say why he left Saskatchewan in 2005. Or I said, maybe you all don't care anymore. Guess what? People write in, they said, we care. We want to know. So that's coming down the pipe if Henry's willing to talk about it. But back to this Davis Alexander thing, because this is only a 7-minute segment, the opening segment. We got way more time in the next one. Did you just say he's 8-0 as a starter, Davis Alexander? He's tied Danny McManus for the best start by a rookie. In CFL history, he's tied it. And his next start, if he wins it, he'll be the greatest start in CFL history. Who the hell is Davis Alexander, man? He wasn't even a household name in his own house. That's a heating thing, Hank. What do you think about that stat?
Well, it just says a lot about the development that takes place, with the Alouettes. And again, you got to start with the head guy and Jason Moss. He made sure when the team was up and coming and they were young, they, had the details that need to be paid attention to at a deeper level. They needed the talent level that it needed, that needed to be required to win a championship. They had a veteran quarterback at that point in Cody Fajardo, a guy who could overcome as far as those ebbs and flows of the team, maybe not being as experienced, maybe not having the detail and discipline that it takes to win. But whenever you have the right signal caller with experience, you can overcome those youthful mistakes. But now you got a team that, of course, seeing them get Sean Lemon back, who's another installation of experience and knowledge and a guy who knows how to go out and produce as well. Look at the players that they have around them. They got Mack back. Of course, they had an injury at receiver, but they're able to plug in another playmaker. They got Thomas Erlington out there, who has to me, the best poetic name ever in football, in Thomas Erlington Jr. But the thing is, these guys have playmakers around them. They've got a veteran-laden team, and all they ask a young guy to do is just not turn the ball over. Use those legs, use the ability that God blessed you with. They've got playmakers on the defensive side who found a way to shut down that Argos offense that was throughout the first three quarters, just running up and down the field and putting the ball in the end zone. But when you have a team that's veteran-laden, has all the experience in the world, you can install a quarterback or insert a young quarterback like himself who's productive and a playmaker, but more so who takes good care of the ball and operates the offense based on the way Moss, as far as installs and calls of plays as well.
So is Davis Alexander all that in your mind, or how much of this is coaching?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you got to give the kid kudos for the fact that he's making the plays as far as what it needs to be made to win games, and the fact that they were suffering through adversity. And again, you could tell throughout the game he was taking some hits, and he was definitely dealing with the ebbs and flows of the game. But you know what? You got to give him his respect due, but it's much different than when you look at a guy like, as far as Danny McManus. I mean, how productive he was on that team. He led that team with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. But of course, he had some great players around him, but he was a guy they put the ball in his hands for 30 to 35 times a game. And he responded by putting up the right numbers as far as through the air, putting the ball in the end zone, and also taking good care of the ball with the touchdown to interception ratio. I would say that right now, Davis Alexander can win you games, but you don't want to depend on him to win you the game every time. He needs to prove that.
Some comments from the viewers here, then we'll break and come back with some even more juicy stuff. They want to hear the story, Henry. I feel like we're going to get to some down to business today. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says Davis Alexander and Danny Mack do not have the record for best start by a CFL rookie. According to the game notes, they do. Jeff, enlighten me. They've been talking about this for weeks. I do believe that they do. 8-0 is the record. So if you know otherwise, please let us know. There's Bill writes in from the Queen City. He says, good morning, Henry. We still talk about the sports dinner we met at in Saudi and the fun night we had with you at your table. That was a lot of fun. Ricky Foley was with us that night. Remember that one, Henry? We had so much fun. Ryan McCarthy says he's in New York State. He goes, it helps to have Jason Moss, but also the GOAT, Anthony Calvillo, as your OC. More with Henry Burris coming up right after this break.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with The Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is, you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more, there's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste. Savor. Share. The spirit of Italian. Come in. Enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. It is a Football Friday live from the Golden Ticket Sports Center. Some messages have come in on the Western Dodge text line. Henry Burris is our special guest co-host today. Kirk in Toronto writes in and he says, a gut-wrenching loss by the Argos, especially when they played well for 3 quarters. It was a replay of last year's collapse in Calgary. That's from Kirk in Toronto, an Argos fan. Henry, okay, I'm going to get some stuff off my chest. You're so comfortable analyzing these games. You do it with a smile. You, for a brief time, were on the TSN panel, the CFL on TSN panel, and you did the CTV Ottawa stuff. How did you feel about that media stuff? Because you didn't stay in it for too long. You knew you could have done it for the rest of your life, but I just feel like you wanted to be on the sidelines. Can you talk about that?
You know what, and you're exactly right. I mean, I loved it. I earned my degree from Temple University in broadcast communications, and for so many years, regardless if it was in Regina, Calgary, Ottawa, Hamilton, I always found time during the off season to intern with the local station, both on air with TV and also finding time to dabble as far as in the sports radio world. But I knew at some point I wanted to kind of exercise that muscle, and I had that opportunity with CTV Morning Live and of course being with the panel. But I still recall that final year of 2019, just how every time I'd be at a stadium on location, in the booth, doing color, whenever Matt Dunnigan and Suits would allow me to get in the booth and have some fun, my palms got sweaty, and I just enjoyed being on the sideline, talking ball with the guys, feeling that game day atmosphere, just being there on site. And I continually got calls from down in the U.S. saying, Hank, we need more quarterback coaches that played the position to be working with guys down here. And honestly, when that opportunity came following that 2019 Grey Cup, when the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats, I started to dabble and started to make those calls and to gather information. And, for me, it was an opportunity to find out, is this where my next move is? And honestly, just based on the attention that I was able to garner at that time and, sitting down with 7, 8 NFL teams and having a head coach like Matt Nagy show interest right away, I knew it was my calling to be down here to help impact young men. I was able to learn so much from the game as far as what it did to me. It introduced me to my wife, took me to the greatest country in the world in Canada, and to have an opportunity to take all that knowledge and share it with the youth today. We need more men stepping up to the plate and helping out our young men to teach them how to make those transitions, how to make the right decisions, and do the next best thing to therefore take the baton and help out the youth in the future. And I couldn't hesitate for the opportunity to be a coach on the sideline.
Right. So you spent one season as quarterbacks coach at Florida A&M, and all of a sudden they elevate you to assistant head coach. So I went to that game at Hard Rock Stadium. And trust me, Rider fans, I'm getting to it. Just chill out. We got lots of time with Hank. I went to that game, and you're playing Cam Ward, the number one overall pick of the NFL draft with the Hurricanes. And it's not even about Cam Ward. You guys kept it close for a quarter. I was there with my buddy Chris Brown. And for a quarter. The point spread was 35. I'm like, oh, my God, they might actually beat the spread here. But there was a series in the second quarter where your guy got sacked every play. First down, second down, third down, punt. I'd never seen that before, ever. What do you remember about that game?
Well, I just remember running on the field for warmups, and I look down and I see Cam Ward, and I'm like, okay, this dude is smooth. You know what I mean? Just sitting there watching just his mannerisms, how he galvanized the team on their side. But you could tell just the entire team embodied his spirit, embodied his passion, embodied his mindset. And that's why, when we stress the importance in the CFL game of having that signal caller, that gunslinger, that guy who can take any organization, any market, any CFL fan base and turn them from a non-contender into a contender and a believer by giving them hope based on one guy. That's what Cam Ward did for the Miami Hurricanes, because nobody talked about them in the national championship as far as landscape until he arrived on campus. And trust me, I'm here in Tallahassee, and right across the street is Florida State, and they talk about DJ Uiagalelei or whatever his last name is, and Cam Ward both came on a visit the same weekend. Well, they took DJ and let Cam Ward go to Miami, and we saw how that worked out for both teams. But it just shows you the impact of what that young man has, but also even on a bigger picture, on a macro picture, just having that right leadership, that leader and ability in the room. And when you empower those young men, it's amazing what they can do when they have his type of skill set. But everything he did looked effortless. It was smooth. And I knew that young man would be a first-round pick leading an organization in the NFL pretty soon. And now he's there with the Tennessee Titans, of course.
Yeah, right, yeah. And as you say, you're coming to Boca Raton. I think it's September 6th. I was looking up the schedule earlier this week. Okay, we might as well get into it here. We got lots to get to with Henry Burris, special co-host today, and I can't thank him enough for doing it, from the Florida A&M Rattlers, Canadian Football Hall of Famer. Noni's watching in Calgary, and she writes in on the Western Dodge text line, 902-518-3033. Hi, Rod and Smiling Hank. We were sad to see you leave the Riders, Henry. That's because we wanted you to stay. Keep smiling. And I apologize because I don't want to pick a wound or bring up the past, but when you signed as a free agent in Calgary in 2005, it was an emotional time for everybody, right? And it lingered for years. And Jim Barker, who's coming up in hour 2, says, I don't have the details right. I was relating this a while back about what the figures were and what Calgary was offering you. And I guess, Hank, it hasn't really been reported. I feel like you and I covered this in a past interview, but maybe we didn't. Do you want to address leaving Sask for Calgary in 2005?
Well, I'll say it like this, Rod. When you put two different offers on the table and one is probably a few $100,000 more than the other, it's hard to tell your wife, no, we can't take that, baby, because at the end of the day, now in these points right here in our life is when it really matters. How much are we investing into our future? My son, of course, Armand's here at Florida A&M playing wide receiver. We still have to pay for school in some sort of capacity. And I got another younger son, Barron, he's going to be going to college. So we got to be able to afford those types of things, and plus prepare ourselves for retirement. And, again, when it's a couple $100,000 difference as far as in contracts, I think it's pretty much written on the wall where you need to be. And again, at the end of the day in professional sports, really any career on a professional basis, you go where the money is. I mean, it's the Jerry Maguire thing, the whole, what was the name? Rod Tidwell thing, show me the money. And Calgary did at that time, where Roy Shivers told me again after losing to BC, of course, in late in the game with Duncan O'Malley kicking a 47-yard field goal to send them, to the Grey Cup and not us. At the end of the day, for me to have to come back and prove it again against Nealon Green, to me, that was uncalled for. You asked me to do a job, put us in position to go to the big one. I did everything that I could. And if it wasn't Saskatchewan to show me the opportunity to lead the organization and be the undisputed, number one, then I knew somebody was. And I'm thankful Calgary gave me the opportunity. And a guy by the name of Jim Barker was a part of that as well. So I'm pretty thankful for Barks and Ted Hellard and the rest of the group in Calgary for giving me the opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you what. It was hard. I mean, you look at everything happens for a reason. No, I'm serious, Henry, because you and I
Yes.
stayed close through all of that, and it was hard. Listen,
Yes.
I got called into the radio station manager's office in Regina. I never told you that, and my boss is like, "Stop dumping on Shivers." I said, "He deserves it." He goes, "Well, your buddy Henry's gone to Calgary, and you still got to work with Shivers." And I'm like, "Yeah, right." And then there was the way that you were treated by Rider fans for years after the
Yes.
fact. You know, that Henry, don't tell me it didn't hurt. You didn't want to leave. You can say it was about the money, but you didn't want to leave. Let's get down to it.
I didn't want to leave. And you're right. I did not want to leave. I did everything in my power to stay there. I had a number of different conversations with Roy trying to stay in Regina. I love that place. For me, like I said, it felt like home for myself because I was a small town kid who grew up on a farm. And again, I made sure whenever there was an opportunity to get out in the province, whether it was from PA down to Melfort, you know what I mean? I was there. And I wanted to be a part just of that culture. I wanted to be a part of the fabric of that organization. I wanted to maintain just that relevance there for years to come. For me, it hurt when I saw Kerry Joseph and Darian Durant win. Of course, I was there when Darian won it, but I wanted to be a part of that because, for me, I had invested so much mentally and physically as far as into that organization. And that's why whenever people say, Hank, we'd love you to come back to the province, before they even finish the sentence, I say, sign me up. I'm on my way. I didn't want to leave, but, again, it is a business. You have to make important decisions for your family because at the end of the day, you're only one play away from the inevitable happening, which is getting hurt. And now you can no longer play. Then what do you have to say and show for yourself at that point? But for me, when we played that first game back in Regina, I was in tears. When I walked into Taylor Field, the old school Taylor Field, not the beautiful modern HDMI or 4K Taylor Field that you guys play in now. But for me, Taylor Field, I was in tears. In pregame, most especially, and of course at the end of the game, but I was happy to come out there and get a victory. But for me, it was very emotional because a lot of friends and people I still consider family were there in the stands. But I will say, as hard as they were on me on game days, and I played with emotion and tried to do everything I could to win, playing at home in Regina. Trust me, after the games, whenever I was able to gather with a number of the fans and have a couple of cold ones, some original 16s, I was always up for the task and couldn't wait to see people.
Well, here's the Shane writes in from Deer Valley. He says, great to see Henry back on the big screen. David from Winnipeg writes in. He says, Smiling Hank, wonderful career and wonderful guy for the Canadian game. They're all writing in. And I'll be honest, Henry knows this, but I've never been closer to a player in my career, and I've been doing this for decades, than you. I was so upset.
Oh,
and the one thing with the Henry, which you still get, when did you realize that they did love you? Because I think you thought that they hated you. They did not. They loved you and still do. When did that dawn on you?
Well, for me, I looked at it more as a game day hate. You know what I mean? But I was expecting that. I mean, it's Rider fans. They're as passionate as any fan base. Like I said, I would put them up there with the Green Bay Packer faithful here in the NFL, and of course some of the most passionate college football fan bases here in the NC2A, because they love you when you're on their team if you're wearing the right color. But if you're not, hey, they hate you. You know what I mean? This is Chelsea and Arsenal when you're watching them play if you love soccer. But the bottom line is, when it came to the Rider fans, I knew they loved me just based on their response after the signing had happened. And, of course, it hurt. It hurt, you know what I mean, to have to leave. And, of course, even for my wife, Nicole, she didn't want to leave either. We wanted to be there for a long time. That's why we were invested into the community. That's why we had moved up there. We had set up roots there. But we knew it was coming down to that point where we had to make a decision and put ourselves in a position that if the Riders chose to stick with us, then we were ready to make that transition. But if not, we had to move forward. And unfortunately, it didn't work out our way. And at the end of the day, I'm responsible for my family, and I have to make the right decisions that are for our future. And it's unfortunate it had to turn out that way, but it hurts. And it still hurts to talk about it and see the fact that certain other guys that I still love and carrying those guys won championships there. I wanted to be the quarterback experiencing a parade in Regina. And for me, honestly, and obviously that became apparent when you saw me win the Grey Cup in Ottawa, because for me, that was my Grey Cup, winning it for a fan base that truly deserved it, like the Rider faithful. But for me, unfortunately and fortunately, it was for the actual Rough Riders, not the Rough Riders.
You're right. The Red Blacks. Yes. Well, I think we can successfully put this to bed here. Are we still going to do a book on it, Henry? Because I think it'd be a pretty damn good book. Not just the rider thing, but your whole career. It would be motivational. Have you thought about that?
Without a doubt, without a doubt. And for me, just even this chapter of my life right now, and I tell everybody this all the time, everything, the time that I lost of investing into the communities and the fan base and people we call family in Canada, I lost some years with my boys and with Armand and with Barron. And now I'm having an opportunity to invest into them. And that's why, even though opportunities have came available up north to interview for this job, for that job, at the end of the day, when I knew I had an opportunity to coach my son, Armand, there was no opportunity going to stand between me and that. Because again, I see pictures of him running on the field, whether it's in Hamilton or in Ottawa. I had to take advantage of this opportunity. But hey, who knows? You never know. At some point, we might have the return. If things are correct and it's the right situation and opportunity, you never know what can happen, Rod. You never know.
I just know that you will be a success at whatever you decide to do. When they say God created us all equal, no, he didn't. You haven't met.
Oh, come on now.
You haven't met Glenn Suter. You haven't met these talented guys. You haven't met Bob Poley. We were not. You ever met Eric Lindros? We're not all created equal. Real quick, how do you pronounce your hometown? I never knew. Spiro? What is it? Spiro, Oklahoma. That's what I thought. The Greeks say it's Spiro. One more segment with Henry Burris coming up. We'll be right back. We're live on the Game Plus Television Network. Get your text messages in 902-518-3033.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina. This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is fantastic. Western Dodge text line as we have our guest, Henry Burris, with us. Norm Fong writes in. Normie, the Hall of Fame equipment manager of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, says, Rod, always great seeing Hank's big smile. Signed, Fongo. Laverne writes in from Swift Current, says, so listening and watching Henry Burris, I see how we came up with the nickname Smiling Hank. It's an infectious smile. Love it. All kinds of messages here. Shy writes in Saskatchewan. He says, Henry, you were an inspiration to Rider fans. I would suggest he still is. He's not dead. And Craig Smith writes in, our VP of Scouting. He says, Henry is great listening to on his analysis on football. See, that's the thing. I would selfishly rather have Henry on television being an analyst, but he's got more to offer to the players, so I get that. But can you explain to me how the game of football has changed? Everybody's telling me, I don't know football enough. I'm a hockey guy first. Explain to me, Henry, how the game's changed the last 10, 20 years. Because the old timers are like freaking out. They said they've bastardized this game. I don't even know what they're talking about. How's it changed?
Well, the evolution it's involved now, not only winning between the hashes, but we're trying to win in the CFL terms, you're trying to win all 65 yards of width, but also you have different levels of execution when it comes to when you focus as far as on how we're going to get after a defense. You have a first level, which is take advantage of whether it's a front from a defense being the defensive line, or you're trying to do some things to manipulate the second level, which are the linebackers. And now you even have what they call the RPOs, which attack the third level. And so for many ways, you're trying to find the weaknesses of every defense and exploit them, but also try to manipulate them by giving all these different motions, shifts, and different adjustments formation-wise to put them at their weakest area, or in their weakest, lineup, or as you can say. And now you're trying to manipulate them in that manner, because for us, we do a lot of motioning. Our offense down here is similar to the McVay offense, the Kansas City Chiefs, all that type of stuff. We run a lot of different motions and stuff to try to single up matchups on certain guys against their weakest links as far as on the defense. But again, back in the day, it always used to be about winning between the hashes. That still exists because the teams that are winning championships are still the best up front, both on the offensive line and the defensive line. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of window dressing involved just to try to get after defenses and try to focus on the areas where they're weak. We do it with a lot of different motions now, but also try to stretch the field 65 yards wide when doing that, as opposed to in the past, it was more just win between the hashes and we got you beat.
You know, you talked about how the coach at Florida A&M offered you that opportunity. And but what I also hear from the old coaches, mind you, you and I are old, the really old coaches, how the players have changed. How is it that you can relate to these guys? Because to be honest, I love this, man. You know me. I show up at Hard Rock Stadium. Henry's the first guy on the field because that's what you do. Before the players, for God's sakes. You still got the best arm, and you're the last guy off. So how do you relate to them, Hank? Because they're not the same as you and the guys of your ilk and older.
Well, to me, the players don't care what you know until they know that you care. And these guys know I love them. And that's, for me, that's something I've done wherever I've been, because I'm all about relationships first, because to me, X's and O's do not matter until, I get to know you as a person. I want to know what makes you tick. I want to know what's special in your life, because, again, I want to focus on those things, because at the end of the day, there are more people than just that player or my teammate that's involved as far as in their everyday development and their everyday process. And I want to make sure I'm not only working for the player, but I'm working for that mother and father, or their sister and brother, or their grandma who helped raise them, from a youthful state. I invest into those areas as far as in each and every one of our kids here. And because it means a lot to me, because at the end of the day, I want to learn how they talk. What do they enjoy? because then, I can start, I kind of joke with the guys now. I was like, I know I'm 50 years old, but I try to learn some of the slang just so I can talk and joke around with them when I'm in the meetings. I don't want to be that same boring coach up there saying, make sure you get your depth, make sure you're alignment, you check this. No, that's not going to be me. I want to have fun with the guys. I want to speak the slang. I want to joke around with them, have a good time. I want to make sure when you come to work every day, you're enjoying yourself, because at the end of the day, it's not about us as coaches. It's about us investing in the players and being a part of their culture, but also making it better.
I wonder who you connected the best with, because in my mind, as you're talking, you want a Grey Cup with Wally, you want a Grey Cup with Rick Campbell, you want a Grey Cup with Jim Barker, Tom Higgins, and then you had DB, our dearly beloved DB. Come on, he wasn't pulling any of the strings. It was all Roy. It was all Shiv. It wasn't DB. So who was the guy that spoke to your soul as a player in the CFL?
For me, it was actually, of course, Danny Barrett was my guy. He's my numero uno. He's been my guy who helped bring me to Canada. Him and Roy did. They got me started in Calgary. But, at the end of the day, when I talk about two coaches who really, changed the focus and the barometer and the direction of Henry Burris, it was George Cortez, number one.
Yeah.
But just the time he put into me, that he invested into me, taught me the game, taught me how to be a professional. Look at all the guys that he's coached. I mean, people forget that when he was at Cal with Jeff Tedford, he coached Kyle Bowler, who was the number one draft pick for the Ravens. And there's this guy who plays for the Steelers now named Aaron Rodgers, who he coached as well with the Cal Bears. And, just to show his suit, working with Rob Johnson and also Doug Flutie with the Buffalo Bills, I had the opportunity to work with him, of course, after Jeff Garcia and Dave Dickinson did. But he helped show me what it's like to be a professional. And I would say later in my career, the guy who put the icing on the cake for me and really challenged me and probably made me the most complete quarterback I could be. You can throw Ken Austin in there, but to me, the guy who hit it on the head, who I resonated with that much better than others, was Jason Moss, because we spoke with each other. We had conversations. He didn't coach me. We had conversations, but it was just the way that he did the coaching style was in a conversational manner, where that's how I learned. That's how I speak to my quarterbacks now. We have conversations. I'm not barking at you. We're talking about a subject together, because he spoke to me as if this would not be possible without you. Whereas other coaches will teach you where if you don't do it this way, then it's the highway and now Rod's in at quarterback. So the thing is, the way you come after guys, you have to get to know them and figure out ways you can get the most out of them. And working with Jason Moss, he was a guy I can see why every quarterback that's played in the system has had success, because he's a fiery guy. He loves what he does. You're going to get his all, but also, inside the guy's truly invested and love you. Because there were a couple of times Jason almost came off the sideline to fight a team because if I took a late hit or something like that, he was ready to bust off the sideline and bust somebody in the head. But that's the type of coach that you want to play for, a guy who's got your back all the time.
By the way, I got to correct myself. Jeff, the Stamps fan, is up my ass. He's like, Tom Higgins? Okay, I'm sorry. It was Huff. It was not Tom Higgins. I get it. Yeah, it was the greatest CFL speech of all time. Guys, we got him right where we want him. Right? That was the best speech.
I still cry when I hear that now. I've played that for our guys here on our team, and they were like, man, is that coach still coaching up there? I'm like, yeah. I was like, he's not coaching anymore, but he's one of the head guys for the Calgary Stampeders still. The guy still means a lot to me as far as Coach Huff does. And it's unfortunate, the way things departed there. And, just with everything that we're able to invest into in the city of Calgary, not only from a foundational standpoint away from the game and impacting kids, but also on the field, the things that we're able to accomplish with the team that was struggling, there for a few years, and we were able to help dig them out of the ruts, and for Huff to help come in. And in that year, just the impact that he had on my career, and for us to be able to win a Grey Cup championship, I'll never forget that. I will never forget that. And I know we were fiery with each other as our careers ended, but to me, I think just due to make sure cooler heads prevailed and we did it the right way, to go into the Hall of Fame with Coach Huffnagel and to enjoy a couple of cold ones with him in Hamilton before those ceremonies, for me, was everything I needed. Love the guy to death, would do anything for him. But if he's ever ready to scrap still, come on, Huff, let's get it on.
Well, you're seeing that. You're going to be having those clashes. Maybe you already are. We saw it last year with Bo Nix and Sean Payton in Denver. They're yelling at each other on the sidelines, and the media is all, ooh. I'm like, no, you should want that, right? It means they care. Have you had that yet with a player?
Well, not with the player, but trust me, I've been out with coaches. I remember my first game that I was made the play caller here. a receiver coach on the opposing side of a team. I will not name them, but when we play the Florida Classic, that's our other rival in the entire state of Florida, another HBCU known as, I'll go ahead and say the name, Bethune-Cookman. But a coach on their sideline said, "Oh, you guys got a new play caller. We're going to beat the brakes off of you guys today." And I said, "Tell them to Google me." And so at that point, it all got started, the trash talking, and all of a sudden we're coming out at halftime. They're talking trash to us because they had just scored and went up. But then I said, "We ain't even got started yet. Wait till the second half." And so those are just the things that you got to do. You got to be passionate about what you do. And I'm a very passionate guy. And again, there's one thing I'll do. If you want to touch one of my players in the wrong way, you're going to have to fight me to get the opportunity to do so. And so I look forward to standing up for our guys, and I've had the opportunity and look forward to future ones as well.
Wayne in BC says, "What a great human being." Henry Burris says, "Love listening to him." Thanks, Hank.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is, you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more, there's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is, you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more, there's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Welcome back on a Football Friday, everybody. And what a special treat it was. What a special day to have a special guy with us. Henry Burris, Canadian Football Hall of Famer. And I do have to pass along a bouquet to our business manager here at the RP Show, Joe Gunnis. He is also Henry Burris's speaker agent. We're actually going to have Joe on the air today because he hosts the Ratio podcast. But he's like, you know what? You don't want me. I think I can get somebody better. Hang on. Next, will Henry Burris do? How about yes? Henry Burris will do. He was fantastic. Some messages coming in on the text line, 902-518-3033 for Western Dodge. Proud partners of the Rod Peterson Show, Western Dodge and Moose Jaw. Big city selection with small town service. Laverne says, so now that Henry has started the second half of his life by just turning 50 years young, what is in the future for Smiling Hank? Well, you're seeing it. I mean, Laverne, you're a pretty sharp guy. You follow sports pretty closely. Henry had this Hall of Fame career in the CFL, played in the NFL, started games for the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football. He was Brett Favre's backup in Green Bay, and then he's coached around the NFL with the Bears and the Jaguars. I can't remember all the teams. He will be coaching. He'll be successful at whatever he wants to do, but he wants to coach. Selfishly, I'd prefer to see him on television, but he didn't want to do that. And by the way, as they say, the world takes you by the hand. What's that song by Green Day? Time takes you by the hand and leads you where to go. It was Florida A&M that reached out to Henry and said, we need a guy that can deal with our young players, and we think you're the guy that can do it. And within a year, he's been elevated to associate head coach. So Henry will do whatever he wants to do. Could he one day end up being the head coach of an NFL team? My guess is I would think Henry will be back in the NFL, but I'm not totally sure. And I've been thinking about this a hell of a lot lately. I didn't realize it when I was in the CFL for 20 years. I didn't realize it until recently. A lot of things have made me think about things. And I was always very, very close to the players. I think that's evident, and anybody that knows my history knows that. But Henry's the guy that I was the closest to, and his departure from Saskatchewan, I guess it's the best way to put it, that it was about money. That's just the way that Henry wants to leave it. I mean, there's far, far, far more to it than that. Why didn't the Rough Riders match the offer that Calgary made? They certainly could have. Roy didn't want to. But this is, let's just succinctly put a bow on it and say Calgary was offering more money. We're good. But I knew the truth, and that I was in the wrong for sure. That was 2005, 20 years ago, where I kind of realized your role as a play-by-play guy. Man, without question, I was too close to the players. There's no doubt about that. And I kind of get a kick out of this because after I left that Rough Rider job, I'm like, I don't ever want to be the voice of a team again for a variety of reasons. When I left that job, I was 46. I'm like, the players, now I'm getting to be old enough to be their dad. So if I can't hang out with the players and be friends with the players and be close with them, I don't want to do it. But then last year, when I got this opportunity to broadcast baseball, and these kids are 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 in the Western Canadian Baseball League, I don't want to hang out with them. I just realized there's another way of doing things, Rod. I can still see them at the Golden Ticket Sports Center every day, and they can still come to me when they've got issues in their life. They can come up to the press box. We can talk on the – you don't have to do it the way you did do it. And I also don't regret being that close to the players because that ends up having interviews like we just had with Henry Burris. It's never going to be that way again. So it was awesome for a season, as they say. Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes in. He says, we should have asked Henry about those rumors of him being the head coach in Sask 2 years ago. Well, we don't need to ask Henry. I just explained how close Henry and I are. At that time, let's match up the time frame. Henry was out of football. Henry didn't have a job. I believe he had just wrapped up a stint with the LA Rams. And he was between jobs, and the Riders were looking for a head coach. So if I recall, I can't totally remember, but I think Henry texted me and said, put it out there that you're hearing Henry Burris connected with the Rough Riders. So I put it out there. As it turned out, the Riders had their eye on Corey Mace. I don't know if they ever did have their eye on Henry Burris at that time at all. I think to be honest, that's one thing where I will give the Rough Riders a lot of credit. They designated Corey Mace as the guy they wanted, and they went and got him. And, you know, the Riders do things. Teams do things, not just the Riders, not the way I would do them. Like, there's this pomp and circumstance. Let's do a round of interviews. Let's then do a second round of interviews, right? And the story goes that Corey Mace, after the first interview, said to the Rough Riders, I'm not coming back. No, that was Corey Chamberlain did that. Mace goes, I want this effing job. Very similar kind of guys, you know. And then, like, within a month, Henry was hired at Florida A&M, and he got the call. John in Vancouver writes in. He says, I'm watching on TELUS Channel 924, Game Plus 2. Well in. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in across Canada on the Game Plus television network, Canada-wide and 32 U.S. states. Carlos in Indianapolis tunes in and says, that flew by fast. I knew it would. There wasn't a whole lot that I was going to get to with Henry. I wanted to talk about what he's doing now. I wanted to talk about his departure from Saskatchewan because we've never actually addressed that on air. And as I say, there's far more to it than Henry got into there. But it's his story to tell, not mine. Let me read a sports update here on this Friday. The first place Toronto Blue Jays return from the All-Star break tonight, opening a 3-game series against the San Francisco Giants at Rogers Center. Chris Bassett gets the start for Toronto, which has won 13 of its last 17 and holds a 2-game lead on the New York Yankees in the American League East. Justin Verlander is set to start for San Francisco. The Honda Indy kicks off today in Toronto with practice on the downtown street course. 9 races are scheduled over the weekend across multiple series, headlined by Sunday's IndyCar Series event. Toronto's Devlin DeFrancesco is the lone Canadian in the field, while American Colton Herta is the defending champion. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers look to avenge their only loss of the season tonight when they host the Calgary Stampeders. Calgary dominated that first meeting 37-16 and is riding a 3-game road win streak. Winnipeg will be without star receiver Dalton Schoen and left tackle Stanley Bryant tonight. The second round of the British Open is underway. 5 players entered the day tied for the lead at 67. World number 1 Scottie Scheffler started 1 shot back. Rory McIlroy is also in contention after posting a 70 in round 1, despite hitting just 2 fairways. Damian Lillard is back where he started. The Associated Press is reporting Lillard is signed to a 3-year deal worth $42 million to return to the Portland Trailblazers. The 35-year-old Lillard spent 11 seasons with Portland before he was traded to the Milwaukee Bucks 2 years ago. The sports update is brought to you by CoolBet Canada. Get a welcome bonus up to $200 with the promo code RP200 at coolbet.com. There is far more that I didn't even get to in the warm-up with Henry Burris, and in the time we have left here in hour 1, I can read those comments. I'm reading the comments now. I can read those stories. 902-518-3033. It just popped into my head about asking Henry about how the game has changed and how the players have changed. Let's not mince words. Only a certain special type of coach, I think, could relate to today's players. And I'm just glad that I'm not coaching. I mean, I hear this all the time here, just being around the baseball team, that people say that the young guys gravitate to you, Rod. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not coaching them. That's totally different. They come to me and talk about we talk about life things with the players. So I coach them that way. Maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. And in that way, the athletes haven't really changed because I just told you their ages. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. They're spending their summer playing baseball every day where their friends are out goofing off all summer. That's what summer's for, right? Not for these ball players, not these NCAA ball players that play in this league. I respect the hell out of that. They're committed to something. It's where we get along. As we continue in the quick 6 show topics, because it is a football Friday. Star Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker TJ Watt has agreed to a new pact that will make him the league's highest paid defender and keep the perennial All-Pro in black and gold well into his 30s. The agreement's average annual value of $41 million eclipses the previous record contract for a defender set by Cleveland defensive lineman and reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year Myles Garrett in March. This is something that will spill over into the next hour, and we're going to have to bring in Jim Barker on it, I feel. There was not a Big Ten player, coach, or fan in sight this week in Atlanta as the College Football Hall of Fame hosted SEC Media Days. Still, the SEC's number one rival found its way into conversations all week long. It's no secret the rivalry has intensified in recent years between the Big Ten and SEC. Over the last decade, the SEC has won 6 of the last 10 national championships. 2 were won by Clemson in that stretch, but the last 2 were won by Big Ten teams, Michigan and Ohio State. So the recent success of the Big Ten has put a dent in the SEC's reputation as the nation's dominant conference. SEC coaches, players, and Commissioner Greg Sankey maintain, there's no question, the SEC is still the best conference in college football. I know that is hieroglyphics to a lot of our viewers in Canada, but not to those in the States. And I think I'm the guy that says, let's dispense with all the conferences and have one big league. I think it would make things a heck of a lot more easy to follow for everybody. Hour 2 is coming up, and Jim Barker will be with us from the CFL on TSN, live here on Game Plus Television and streaming.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is, you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more, there's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Welcome inside, everybody. It's hour 2 of the RP show on a football Friday, and I hope you're enjoying it. I'm going to tell you, if you just tuned in, we had a very special guest in hour 1. Canadian Football Hall of Famer, current Florida A&M Rattlers associate head coach Henry Burris was with us for 40 minutes, answering selfishly all of my questions that I never had a chance to ask him before. And it was fantastic. We didn't get to all the viewers' questions, but we got to most of them. And coming up in the next segment, Jim Barker. I mean, we're airing in 32 U.S. states, but this is Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show. It's July, and what's going on in Canada? The Canadian Football League. And it's a special league, of course, but a lot of us spent significant time in it. A lot of us have moved on to other things. I think of the Jeff Reinbolds of the world now at the University of Hawaii, or our good friend Matt Dubuck, who's coaching high school football in Florida, won 3 straight championships. Now Henry, who's worked in the NFL, CFL, college football. It's just a wonderful sport, and it's nice to be able to move around in all these leagues and not be pinned down to just one. And I guess as we re-up here at the start of hour 2, these are the quick 6 show topics. And the big story as far as Canadian football fans are concerned, in my mind, was the Week 7 opener, a thriller in Montreal last night. The Alouettes came back for a 26-25 victory over the Toronto Argonauts. Montreal scored 12 unanswered points in the fourth quarter alone. The winning touchdown came from quarterback Davis Alexander, running in the go-ahead score with 2 minutes to go. But he suffered a hamstring injury on the play. And there's a lot of reasons why you love this show, but the interactive nature is probably number one. And I didn't see your comment, your response to this, Jeff the Stampeders fan, but we've all been talking about the fact that Davis Alexander, this, what is he now, 3rd year, 4th year quarterback for Montreal, who's in his first year as the entrenched starter. I think he's from Portland State. I can't remember, but he's 8-0 starting his career. That's tied him with Danny McManus for the greatest start in Canadian Football League history by any player. One more win for Davis Alexander and the Alouettes, and it's the greatest start ever. Jeff, the Stamps fan who watches every day, is saying that that's not true, and I don't know how that isn't true, because that's what we've been reading in the game notes for weeks. If you know something else or something otherwise, let me know, but if you don't know something else, please don't respond. The Western Dodge text line is open, 902-518-3033. Drive with confidence. Shop Western Dodge in Moose Jaw. Financing selection and service you can count on. Points that I have not got to yet on the program today, because we talked about TJ Watt becoming the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history at $41 million per year. Number 3, is the SEC still the best conference in college football? I think they should dispense with all the conferences and make it one big league. Ryan in upstate New York writes in, and I appreciate this. He says, I can confirm Davis Alexander played at Portland State. Thank you. My memory isn't completely shot. John Ohm says, the best sports and entertainment show is the RP show. Thank you. I agree. And we save Fridays for football. We haven't been talking baseball here today. We haven't been talking hockey today. We've been talking gridiron. Carlos in Indianapolis says, I hope the Steelers find that contract worth it. Isn't it interesting, though? It kind of tells you what TJ Watt's all about, that they would give him what he wants because he's worth it, whereas George Pickens, one of the greatest receivers in the league, they're willing to let walk or get rid of because, as Coach Mike Tomlin referred to him as, a pebble in your shoe. Just annoying. George Pickens, annoying. Oh, where are we going to ship him? Oh, to the Dallas Cowboys. Great. He's our problem now. NFL training camps are opening, and over the weekend, I feel like my channel surfer will be flipping to the NFL Network a lot more than it has been of late. There's just so much other stuff going on, not to mention working in the Western Canadian Baseball League keeps us somewhat busy. To Friday Night Football, in the Canadian Football League. The Calgary Stampeders are at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And if I have this right, again, there's a lot of numbers going in and out of this cranium, but I know for a fact this will be Winnipeg's 8th consecutive sellout. They are the CFL's flagship franchise. Nobody can even argue that. And if you want to argue that, you'll never be convinced otherwise. It's Winnipeg. I think I saw, I'm not as confident in this stat, but I think I saw that the Calgary Stampeders have lost 7 or 8 at Winnipeg. It's a long losing streak going into Winnipeg. Every Wednesday on this show, we do What's the Game of the Week? What is Canada's Game of the Week for EMJ Marketing? And I apologize, we don't have a poll question today, but the winner of the poll was this game tonight, Calgary at Winnipeg. And to be honest, I hope it's a great game. I'm expecting it's going to be a great game, but I raced home a couple of Thursdays ago to watch the Stampede Bowl and was thoroughly disappointed. That's nobody's fault. It just wasn't a close game. Calgary handled Winnipeg from neck to navel that night, from kickoff to the final gun. I hope it's a better game tonight. Because, again, the viewers of this show voted it as the game of the week. I have not had time to get into the game notes of the Saskatchewan at BC game. Selfishly, for me, that is the game of the week. I could sit and tell you stories of those road trips to Vancouver for summer games. Guilty pleasure. I always felt, obviously, that Rough Riders home games were the best in the CFL, but BC was number 2. Love that stadium. Love their game presentation. I hope there's a huge crowd. I haven't heard what the advanced ticket sales are for the game at BC Place. I've heard that they're doing the watermelon smash out front. That's the fun stuff. I appreciate that we have, what's this? Winnipeg 13-0 following a bye since 2019. Okay, well, there's a stat. All the numbers are pointing to Winnipeg winning this game tonight, which normally means they'll lose. I can't see that happening. Toronto made it close last night, though, didn't they? I was following the score update on my phone at the ballpark as I was broadcasting baseball last night, and I saw Toronto leading. I never thought they were going to win, though. And now the Argos are 1-5. So in that case, you can go by the numbers. Can we tonight? I'm not sure. But again, Saturday's kickoff in BC, it is everything you want in a football game. You want your marquee quarterbacks, Nathan Rourke versus Trevor Harris. Who do I think will win? I think the Riders. Let's remember they're coming off getting humiliated at home. We talked about this yesterday. I was on the air in Winnipeg this week, and people always want to ask, what's the mood in Riderville? What are the Rider fans saying about losing last week at home 24-10? And I'm like, I haven't heard a whole lot about it. Part of that is because I'm not in the epicenter of the Rider Nation, Regina. I'm 40 miles away in Moose Jaw, which is its own vortex. And they're not as into the football team in Moose Jaw as Regina. Having said that, 2 Hutterite gentlemen from the colony ran into my friend Mike and I at lunch yesterday at KFC and wanted to know my thoughts on the Rough Riders. I immediately flipped it around and said, what are yours? He said, well, the Riders are contenders, but Winnipeg is too, Then he went into a 10-minute analysis. He didn't care what I thought about the Rough Riders. He just wanted to get off his chest. I know how it works. Air Corps writes in and says, Upper Deck open for the Saskatchewan BC game. Should be a good crowd. See, I don't really know how they went about it in BC because I'm not out there, boots on the ground. But from what I see, Amar Dolman is like this generation's Bobby Ackles. Bobby did it without a budget. Amar Dolman's doing it with a budget. Way back in the early 2000s, before Wally Buono took over, everybody said the BC Lions couldn't be saved. Bobby Ackles comes in, puts together his group called the Water Boys of the 12 influential businessmen in Vancouver. And they're like, we're going to bring the BC Lions back to prominence. And dagnabbit, didn't they? What was Wally's first season? 2003. Within a couple of years, They're playing before crowds of 55,000. They're in Grey Cups. Then they're winning Grey Cups, and that went on for a generation. I was telling somebody the other day, not that you diehards don't know this, but may not. Wally Buono had a Hall of Fame career with the Calgary Stampeders, and then he had a Hall of Fame career with the BC Lions. He had two separate Hall of Fame careers. Not a lot of guys can say that. And for whatever, then it dipped again. Bobby Ackles unfortunately passed away. The franchise was allowed to erode under David Braley. These are things that in the CFL we just have to agree to disagree on. That's what's good and bad about the CFL. It's small enough that it's intimate and we all know each other. And the bad thing is that it's small enough and it's intimate and we all know each other. For those that say, David Braley saved this league, he owned two teams. Sure. That ran it on a shoestring budget, which a lot of teams still are. Amar Doman showed up, just to finish that thought on Bobby Ackles. Bobby did it, boots on the ground, pressing the flesh. Not to say Amar Doman isn't doing that, but Bobby Ackles wasn't flying in Snoop Dogg. Bobby Ackles wasn't flying in 50 Cent. Amar Doman's writing the checks to get these guys. It's just another way of doing it. Maybe it's the new generation's way. Whatever he's doing, it's working. And the fun watermelon smash out front on the steps by the Terry Fox statue before the game. Some teams are doing that. Winnipeg, what did we say? 11th consecutive sellout. 8th consecutive sellout tonight. And to this Luke Wilson thing, it hasn't come up today, but we've kind of been talking about it all week. I'm just following what Luke Wilson's doing with a lot of fascination. And I like the fact that people are saying to me, a lot of longtime CFL media people and fans are saying, Luke Wilson's like you back in the day. He's refreshing. And I'm like, well, that's a compliment because I like what Luke Wilson's doing. Was it yesterday on this show I said it, or was it on Winnipeg Sports Talk I said? Maybe both. And it's 11:11 Mountain, 1:11 Eastern. Please envision a positive outcome to your current quagmire. Luke Wilson with the hot takes has clearly the backing of TSN and the CFL because he's not really changing. And while I've drifted away a little bit, not following everything that he's saying, the hardcores are saying that he's not backing down. As a matter of fact, he's digging his heels in. And as did I. But here's a really great example. Greg Peterson, starting safety on the 1992 Calgary Stampeders. He's been doing color commentary on the radio for years since. When we were doing shows at the Grey Eagle Casino in Calgary a couple of summers ago, Greg came down to the Grey Eagle and he goes, Rod, I really miss you in the CFL. And I'm like, I appreciate that. But I felt like everybody hated me because all you hear from is the haters. Very rarely did you hear from the people that encourage you. And I felt like when I was making these bold comments, and the ones that everybody remembers, nobody really had my back. So after a while, I was just like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Not the play-by-play thing, that's different. But just the hot takes and going on what Luke Wilson's doing now, you just get tired of fighting everybody. And I see Luke having the Twitter wars with people and with some people that I know. And I feel like saying, Luke, you're never going to win this. Just stop. But no, I'm not going to tell him what to do. John in Vancouver, John O'Flynn writes in, he says, wonderful perspective on the BC Lions, Rod. Thank you. Well, I'm just saying what I see, which is always what I do. And Amar Doman's went in there. And it's not just writing a check. Come on, you don't have the success that they've had without rolling up your sleeves. I've also seen him rolling up his sleeves, wearing the BC Lions cap, getting on the front lines. Amar Doman looks like the kind of guy that I would like to work for. But I see the other teams that are not rolling up their sleeves and are not getting that. Well, I know for a fact, aren't doing the press the flesh, not going into it. It just came up the other day at the ballpark here. Just about the Rough Riders and their lack of connection to the province, lack of community involvement to the degree that it was, that's still a big deal here to people. And the team doesn't feel that way anymore. They want to be corporate. They want to be the Dallas Cowboys. They want to be the Leafs. That's just the direction that they've gone. And to be honest, while I'm sitting here pouring out my heart, that's why I love coming home to Saskatchewan for the summers, June, July, August. And that's why I like to leave and go back to Florida in September, because I'm tired of hearing every damn day about what the Riders don't do anymore and how they're upset with it. I'm just tired of hearing about it. Now, yeah, I'm wearing the jacket today, but because it's Football Friday. They're not putting in the work that the BC Lions are and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are. Somebody wrote in here the other day and said, well, it's because winning. They need to be winning. They were 4-0 going into this last week game. They hosted the Western semifinal last year. Don't say the Riders don't have a winning brand, especially since they hired Corey Mace. But is that the perception? It's not a great perception around here, which is odd. And a lot of people outside this province would find that hard to believe because it is the Alabama of Canada. But it was, when you say, what's the mood after the Riders lost to Calgary last week? If you don't have the love and the passion with the fans, then sure, everything's great when they're 4-0 and we're going to the Grey Cup. But the second you lose one game, people check out and they're going to the lake and they're not talking about it on Coffee Row. Janice writes in, she says, with the new ownership in Edmonton, we are beginning to see some of the positive changes we see in Edmonton. See, that's family-run business the way it should be, not corporately owned like the Argos and the Stampeders and some of these other teams, the Tiger Cats. So anyways, there's me on my soapbox. Jim Barker coming in next from the CFL on TSN, here live on Game Plus and streaming.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is, you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest-growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live. Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Welcome back, everybody. It is a Football Friday. Get your questions in now for Jim Barker, 5-time Grey Cup champion here as we talk football on a Friday. Okay, here he is. Jim Barker joins us, and we're going to delve deeply into Week 7 in the Canadian Football League. How do things find you today, Coach?
Well, good. I got a couple things I got to get off my chest as usual. This Davis Alexander thing, to compare his 8-0 start as a starter and what Danny McManus and what Bo Levi Mitchell did. Bo was 7-0, totally different. This guy won 4 games as a backup last year. We talk about it on your show all the time. It's totally different when you're starting a game as a backup rather than when you're the actual starter, and they're having to prepare for you. The pressure of the team is on your shoulders when you're the starter. In my mind, Davis Alexander is a great 4-0. Good for him. But don't compare him to Danny McManus taking over a Grey Cup team and then in 1990, and they go 8-0 out of the gate. Now that to me that's a rookie quarterback, and it's 8-0. Bo Levi Mitchell, John Huffnagel makes a tough decision to send Henry Burris away, and Bo Levi Mitchell has now got the Calgary Stampeders on his shoulders, and he goes 7-0. That's totally different than what's going on in Montreal. I just don't think you can take 4 games with him as a backup winning and 4 games this year as a start. Is he 4-0 this year? Absolutely. But he's halfway there. To me, in my mind, and nobody's brought it up. They just say, well, he started the game, so he's won 8 in a row. It drives me nuts. I had to get it off my chest because nobody on television, all they do is say they're comparing him to Danny McManus. You can't. You cannot do it. A starting quarterback and a backup quarterback starting a game, totally different situation. Thank you.
What was the other thing? You said you had a couple things. Do you remember?
Well, the other thing was last night's game, and so nobody's talked about this, but it's an emotional game, and after the interception, I understand the emotions of that, but Ryan Dinwiddie challenged the roughing the passer. Well, everybody thinks, well, yeah, why not try it? You only got 50 seconds. Well, if they had watched the week before when Montreal lost to BC got the ball back with, I believe it was 26 seconds left. If they would have not challenged that, had their timeout, they would have been punting the ball with 29 seconds left to Toronto, who would then have time to go down, and all they needed was a field goal, and they have Liram Hajrullahu, who is one of the best actually in the history of the league. He's outstanding. They took that opportunity away by trying to get a call that wasn't even. I didn't see it even close to the guy's head, or that it was roughing the passer. He hit him just as he threw, and it was ill-advised. It's kind of what Nick Arbuckle does. He makes mistakes in key parts of games, and that's why they're 1-5. And the fumble. I mean, when they fumbled going in, and the safety recovers it. Sliwa, is it Sliwa? I don't know how to.
Sluka.
I can't pronounce
Luka.
it.
I think it's Luka.
Luka, but it doesn't have a C in it, does it? Sluka. It's got a K.
It says an S.
Sluka.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he recovers another crazy fumble in the end zone, and it just, those kind of things don't happen. Game should be over, but not when the quarterback comes out and the next series takes a sack on the second play, fumbles the ball, gives him the ball back on the, it was just, it was unfortunate. But I felt that nobody had talked about that roughing the passer and what losing a challenge can do to you in a CFL game. 50 seconds is an eternity in a CFL game. Like I say, that we talked about it last week on your show, the 3.5 second play. We saw them with 3.5 seconds take the snap, throw the ball down the middle for 10 yards. He gets down, and there's still, it took about 3.1 seconds. So they could have had time, I think, to go down, potentially kick a game-winning field goal. And it's one of those things that, again, nobody brought it up, so I figured I got Rod tomorrow. I can bring it up on Rod's show.
Well, Janice writes in regarding your Davis Alexander thing. She goes, I cannot agree with you more, Jim, regarding Alexander. But can I play devil's advocate? And this would be fun where if you and I were on the panel together. It's like science. It's like analytics. His record is what it is. I'll go out and make a prediction here. The football gods won't allow him to go 9-0. Whether he starts the next game or not because he's injured, I don't think they'll allow him to break the record. If they agree with you. Because Danny Machocha thinks enough of this guy to tie a can to Cody Fajardo. Like, if he ends up being all that, maybe he's worthy of having the greatest start ever. I totally understand what you're saying, but it's not like he's a Rudy Poo either. You know what I mean? The Owls think a lot of this.
Again, I'm very high on Davis Alexander. He's a Gig Harbor boy where my brother's is living now, so I'm all for Davis Alexander. It's not about him, but it just sticks in my craw that they're comparing his 8-0 to what Danny McManus did when Danny McManus took over a Grey Cup champion team as a rookie.
Yeah, sure.
And goes,
Yeah.
That is totally different. So maybe it should be, starting games as a starter, as the starting quarterback, because he started games last year. Cody was a starter. He stepped in for Cody. So again, it's one of those things that's been bugging me. Nobody on TSN will ever say it, or hasn't said anything about it. All they do is saying, Davis Alexander is going to tie the record for the most. And to me, it's not the same. It's just different when you're a starting quarterback. And so it's one of those things I needed to get off my chest.
Somebody named John Barker writes in and says, yeah. Jeff, the Stamps fan, says, no, the Stampeders won't allow him to go 9-0 if he starts next week. So I'm just saying the football gods will put an end to this. We'll find out who exactly is right.
That's the problem. He ain't going to start next week. He's going to be out, I'll bet, 3 weeks with this hamstring. I'll bet he's out another 3 weeks with this hamstring. They'll bring him back against,
we'll see.
Against Ottawa or somebody like that. And and Jason Moss is a great head coach for him. Jason talks about him like he's a son. And the kid plays a lot like Jason played. They have a lot in common, those two. And I love that, how Jason, when he talked about him after the game, and he talked about, he's 8-0 and he has never lost as a starter and blah. And it's like, that God bless him. But as somebody who's not only been in the game, but a fan of the game, it hurts me because I know what the Danny McManus 8-0, I know what the Bo Levi Mitchell 7-0, Jeff Garcia 7-0. Those were different than what he's done. He's gone 4-0 as a backup starter, and then 4-0 as a starting quarterback of the Montreal Alouettes. So get 4 more wins and then pop off all you want. It's great. And then compare.
You brought the fire today. I love it. Our director of scouting, Craig Smith, writes in. He says, I got the Stamps tonight. That defense is fantastic. VA is solid run game and receivers. Kicking game, solo is what he writes. If Calgary wins tonight, they will have matched last year's win total. And it's July. But I don't think they're going to win. What's your thought on Friday Night Football tonight, Stamps at Bombers?
If they win tonight, they are for real, because physically 2 weeks ago against Winnipeg, they physically beat up Winnipeg, and nobody does that. They took Winnipeg completely out of their game. Then they went to Saskatchewan, the other physical team in the West, and they physically beat them to hell. Now, if they come out and go into Winnipeg and do the same thing to Winnipeg again, they are for real. And again, they have a couple of key factors in there. They went out and got the best defensive lineman, and we talked about this last week. Flo Arimolade You look at the Edmonton Elks defensive front. They're all the same guys that the Argos have had for the last 3 years. Serezna and all those guys. But they had Flo Rimolade. They're totally different players when he's in the game. He's done the same thing with the front in Calgary. That front put pressure, massive pressure all game on Saskatchewan. And again, we talked about Daniel Johnson and the problems those tackles, and they did. They struggled keeping Calgary out of their backfield. So Calgary physically took it to them. If they take it to Winnipeg tonight, they are for real. And I will be on the Calgary bandwagon. Again, it's one of those things that Pat Delmonico, their offensive line coach, always, it doesn't matter who you put in on the offensive line, they're going to be solid. They're always solid. They've got the receiving core they got too many, a lot of guys who get hurt a lot, but they keep plugging these guys in. Now they're going to get Malik Henry back soon, and they can be a legitimate contender. Calgary. The defense is the thing that we've all been wondering about because they got 12 new players over there. But they bring Flo in to lead the front. They bring Derek Moncrief in to lead the linebackers. And then they, in the back end, they go out and get Damon Webb from Ottawa, you had a feel that this guy understands it. They have a guy on every level that has excelled at a high level in this league. And I think that's helped Bob Slowick. And Bob Slowick is, he's about my age, and he's been a coach. He's been coordinator in the NFL, and he's seen it all. And he's been in this league a long time. And I just give him a ton of credit. If they win tonight, the Calgary Stampeders are for real, a true contender.
Huh. Well, the viewers voted it Canada's Game of the Week. I stubbornly voted for Saskatchewan and BC because that's almost a pick-em. I was looking at the game notes here in the break. Nathan Rourke, 15-9 as a starter for BC. He's had 300-yard games 3 times this year. And it's like, Jim, you see it. If Nathan Rourke plays, the Lions win. If he doesn't play, they lose. That should tell you they'll beat Sask on Saturday, but I'm not convinced of that. That's a close game.
Yeah, Saskatchewan, the thing they have, again, over BC still hasn't proven in these kind of games that they can win these kind of games, these physical games. And I can promise you this. The one thing I know about 1 year with Corey Mace, that team got physically beat up last week by Calgary. They will not be physically beat up this week. And again, that's going to be tough for BC because BC's that's always been their problem. That's why they lose in the playoffs every year. They're just not physical enough. They've got to be able to take a step physically. That's what intrigues me so much about the BC-Saskatchewan game is one of these teams is going to come out of this really hurting. I mean, really, and I believe in their locker room will all be in question. If they come out, Saskatchewan comes out, and they get physically beat up by the BC Lions, and that Nathan Rourke goes out and he's able to have time and he's able to do his thing and not get pressured the way that Saskatchewan can give you pressure. I think Saskatchewan's going to be on that slide and it's tough to get off the slide once you get going. So that's a huge game.
Well, that's the thing. For July, I don't remember games meaning this much as they do this year. Right now.
No,
you know what I mean?
There's no doubt. That game last night was a monster game. It was huge for Toronto. They're now 1-5. Again, the whole thing of Chad Kelly and not even being on the sideline, I've never seen that. It's stuff I'm just not used to it. And but for them to lose that game in the manner they lost it after playing pretty much a dominating game, but they still found a way to lose the game. That's how you lose locker room. That's where it's like, wow, what's going to happen next? And that's going to be a tough one for Toronto. But the Ottawa-Hamilton game, Ottawa is on the precipice of, and I hate to call it a shit burger, but that's what they're on the precipice of. If they lose this game to Hamilton and they go to 1-5, 1-6, I'm not, that's a tough thing to come back from. And, they've Ottawa's, they didn't address our offensive line issues. I think they're still having problems there. Pelahos came back, played pretty well, I thought, at right tackle. And if he can keep improving, maybe they'll get one of their centers back. Godber hasn't played at all, and they're playing Jacob. Their offensive line has just been a bit of a mess. Defensively, they play okay, but they're good enough to lose. They just haven't been good enough to win. And their special teams, they too many penalties, just too much of the things that are controllable. So something in Ottawa, this is a huge game for Ottawa. I just think this is a monster for them. And for Hamilton, again, I don't think it's as big a game for them, but they're still trying to find their way. So you're right, Rod. Here we are in July, and these games are phenomenal. They really are. That game last night was just a fun game to watch. And people who don't understand the difference between 3-down football and 4-down football should watch that game, because that game showed the differences. It showed the athleticism and the big plays and, different guys making huge plays. And again, I love that the game. I thought it was a great game to watch. Great things you could question afterwards. The challenges and those kind of things. So, it should be a great week this week.
This is going way too fast. The saving grace for Ottawa, probably their only saving grace, is that the Argos are 1-5 too. However, if you read the game notes, the crossover's in play. And we haven't had one in the CFL since 2019. I kind of thought, I'm like, guys, it's a little early to be talking about a crossover in week 7. However, if I was a West Division team, I wouldn't be hanging my hat on that. All we need is 4th, guys. How do you feel about that talk?
Well, I think it's very appropriate. Right now you're looking at, you have Calgary, Winnipeg, and Saskatchewan that have proven that they can be good. And then you have BC, who, BC should be much better. They should be better than they've played if they can keep Nathan Rourke healthy. And then what is Edmonton? Is Edmonton going to start to win games? They took another step backward. They've been playing better, and then boom, they hit the wall last last Sunday. They just played terrible. And again, it's how can Mark Killam find the things to get Edmonton into the mix? But I think that crossover is more in play this year than I can remember. Now, teams will start playing each other. Ottawa will play Toronto, and somebody's got to win. I think that's a huge consideration this year. Considering last year, I thought the East was better than the West. And I think they ended up, the record showed that the East was stronger than the West. And we all know that in the Grey Cup, the East seems to excel in the Grey Cup. And that's been won a lot by the East. So, again, it's interesting. But again, you look at the BC Lions, they come in here and they're playing Montreal. They have Nathan Rourke. They're playing Montreal with their backup quarterback, and they get a win with 3 seconds left on the game. They kick a field goal to win. They should be able to beat any team with their backup quarterback, I believe. So, I don't know. We'll find out. As great as backup quarterbacks are, it's just they're still backup quarterbacks.
Yes. Tony in Cochrane, Alberta says Nick Arbuckle is who the Stampeders thought he was, a backup at best. Grey Cup win was a fluke. Glenn in Medicine Hat says, how can we not see the Lions receiving corps having a field day against the Riders secondary on a fast indoor track? Oh, man, the viewers are into the games. Jim, we're out of time. Enjoy the games. We'll talk in a week.
Thanks, Rod.
The CFL on TSN's Jim Barker joining us from Toronto. We'll be back with a sports update and viewer takeover the rest of the way here on Game Plus Television.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Formosa, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is, you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Welcome back, everybody. It has been a fantastic football discussion today. We appreciate you tuning in for it. Still plenty of time left, as a matter of fact. 18 minutes, give or take. I will invite you to write in on the text line for Western Dodge, 902-518-3033. Proud partners of the Rod Peterson Show. Western Dodge here in Moose Jaw, big city selection with small town service. Well, I will open with CFL. That's what we've been talking about all day. The defending Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts remain tied with Ottawa in last place in the CFL's East Division. Toronto dropped a 26-25 decision to Montreal last night. The Alouettes scored 12 unanswered points in the fourth quarter for the victory. Montreal is now 2 points up on second place Hamilton in the East. Tonight, it's Calgary at Winnipeg, and Jim Barker just with us saying, if Calgary wins tonight, they're for real. They're a contender. I don't feel like that's going that far out on a limb. Our director of scouting, Craig Smith, wrote in and said he is picking Calgary to win tonight. I'll still go with Winnipeg, but this is the game of the week. Have not talked that much about Luke Wilson, but I'm going to be tuning in tonight to see what he has to say. And I kind of sit back and go, isn't that what this broadcasting, sports media, entertainment world is all about? That's the way it used to be. I mean, you have the announcers, I'm talking about all leagues, not just the CFL, that are there as window dressing, interchangeable. And then you got guys like Luke Wilson, who makes you tune in, makes you look forward to the game. It's rare. And the CFL has a good one there. Just interesting seeing how it unfolds because it ain't over. Just getting started. Lloyd Howell's 2-year run as executive director of the NFL Players Association is over. He says that he's resigning due to distractions his leadership has caused in recent weeks. The move is effective immediately. There's no word on a replacement. Round 2 of the British Open goes today in Northern Ireland. Top-ranked Scotty Scheffler is 1 stroke off the lead at the men's golf major. 5 players begin the day with a share of top spot. Masters champion Rory McIlroy is 3 shots off the pace. The Toronto Blue Jays are back in action tonight now that the Major League Baseball All-Star break is wrapping up. They'll host the San Francisco Giants in the opener of a 3-game series at Rogers Center. The Blue Jays are in first place in the American League East Division standings. The Yankees are 2 back. Texas Rangers and Atlanta Braves are swapping right-handers. Jose Ruiz is heading to the Lone Star State along with cash considerations, with Dane Dunning going the other way. Both teams have struggled this season. Texas is 1 game under the 500 mark, while Atlanta is 4th in the National League East. And the Ontario Honda Dealers Indy Toronto kicks off today with a practice session along the Exhibition Place street course. The qualifying session goes Saturday ahead of Sunday's race. Colton Herta of the United States is the defending champion. The sports update is brought to you by Seat Giant. Stop paying U.S. dollars for games and concerts. Canadian-owned and operated with Canadians in mind. Super Bowl, college football, Taylor Swift, Justin Timberlake. We've got it all. Use promo code RPShow for 15% off now. Check us out at seatgiant.ca. 902-518-3033, the Western Dodge text line. Ron in Calgary writes in and says, great show, Rod. I agree with Jim Barker as to if Calgary wins tonight, they are contenders. But if Saskatchewan has a good performance Saturday, then they're back in the talk as who's the best in the West. Daryl Slade writes in, longtime Calgary Stampeders statistician. Great guy. Daryl writes in from the 403. Rod, congratulations on the best sports show on TV. 2 weeks in a row with solid 2 hours of incredible CFL guests. Scott Schultz, Henry Burris, and Jim Barker twice. Signed, Daryl Slade, Calgary Stampeders historian. Is that the term now, historian? That's what I see Rob Vanstone's got going with the Rough Riders. Well, that's the new thing. Historian. I like it. It's kind of cool. Now is the time for talking CFL football, obviously. It's just like people feel like in January and February when I don't want to talk about it on a Tuesday that I'm some sort of CFL hater. I'm like, the CFL doesn't even talk about itself in January and February, but you want me to? No, not going to happen. But here in the dog days of summer, when it's heating up in the Canadian Football League, now would be the time to talk about it. And it would be nice if people got going with the comments too. Keep them rolling, because overtime's coming in next for Overtime Hockey Lanes right after this final timeout here on Game Plus Television and streaming live.
This is a test pattern. This is what happens when your video company screws up. You don't want your clients to see a screw-up. Hire a company that only does video, so it won't screw up. Then, people who give you money will see less of these and more of you. Skycron.com/live.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Sports fans, daytime sports talk gets a whole lot better weekdays at noon Eastern with The Rod Peterson Show. Talking sports daily with A-list guests, and the best part is you can always join the discussion as we're the most interactive talk show on television. Broadcasting from coast to coast from the biggest events like Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Final, Grey Cup, and more. There's nothing like it in the game today. The Rod Peterson Show, daily at noon Eastern and 10 p.m. Pacific on Game Plus Network.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
Famoso, Italian pizzeria and bar. Taste, savor, share. Famoso, the spirit of Italian. Come in, enjoy.
Hiring a video company shouldn't be complicated. Click, pay, done. Skycron.com/Regina.
Business owners and marketers. Okay, we know you think we're pretty cool. That's why we want you to share in the coolness factor. Partner with the Rod Peterson Show and market your business every weekday to sports lovers just like yourself. Take advantage of our many cost-effective commercial and promotional opportunities. Tell the world about your business. Yes, the world. Thanks to Game Plus TV and the Rod Peterson Digital Network. Contact us today and find out how you can be a part of Canada's fastest growing sports talk show, The Rod Peterson Show.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for Overtime. And it's brought to you by our friends at Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary, 28th Street Northeast. It's getting close now. It'll be July 30th. We'll be broadcasting live from Overtime Hockey Lanes in Calgary. So if you are in the YYC or anywhere around Southern Alberta and want to come on down, you are more than welcome to join us. I can speak for Randy and Michelle on that. And as I said, I love the CFL almost as much as you do. I'm not going to talk about it 2 hours every day because I love other leagues too, but Fridays are a day to do that. And I said, let's get the comments going. So Janice writes in, she is a Stampeders fan living in Edmonton. She says on the YouTube chat, I'm wondering how fast the dissection of the Bombers will begin if the Stampeders win. Well, the question on that is by whom? By the media, by the fans, by themselves? Number one, that is the whole let's burn that bridge when we get there talk, right? Let's see how the game plays out tonight. As I said earlier, I just hope it's a good game. I raced home 2 Thursdays ago to watch the Stampede Bowl, and it was utterly disappointing from a fan's perspective. It wasn't close. I get that the Calgary fans were excited, and the Stamps too. It was a blowout. But don't discount the mood of a team coming off a loss. Winnipeg's coming off a bye, and what did the guys say? They're 12-0, 13-0 coming off a bye. That's one. And then for Saskatchewan, I think I got to go with Saskatchewan winning at BC on Saturday. The Riders ticked off with their home loss here. And it's interesting, by the way, because it's not like people aren't paying attention. I'm going to say this again. People are expecting the Rider Nation to be raging, wanting to burn the stadium down because the team lost at home soundly to Calgary, and that has not been the case. I don't really know why. But don't say that, oh, people aren't paying attention or people aren't watching, because they're all watching and our numbers are higher than ever. Why is it they're not as raging as you would think? And I'll let you in on a little secret. The Riders don't care what is or isn't going on within the fan base. They'll be as mad at themselves at how they played. And they'll probably go out and take it out on the BC Lions. But I don't sense the passion. Arlen Bruce writes in and he says, great show, RP. Northern Arizona Wranglers versus Las Vegas in Vegas. Speaking of the Indoor Football League Network, Arlen Bruce IV will be in action at 6 p.m. Saturday. He says, I got Calgary by 8, BC Lions by 4. Thank you, Arlen. Thank you for the scoop, by the way. It certainly got football people talking that his son, Arlen Bruce IV, will have a hearing with the CFL commissioner about reinstatement in the CFL. I mean, I don't have a lot of time anymore for the Rudy Poos. We put the story up on our Facebook page about Arlen Bruce IV looking at reinstatement. Go in there and have a look. The respondents saying, well, he's 47 years old. Why is this a story? Ryan in upstate New York writes in, he says, the NFL camps start next week. Looking forward to it. But I'm still going to tune into the CFL. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you for that. Got some new viewers today. Of course, our stalwart longtime viewers today. We appreciate each and every one of them. Carlos in Indianapolis says, fastest 2 hours, almost in the books. Have a great weekend and may your teams win. I don't know why this show goes so fast. If you think it goes fast for you, try sitting in this chair. Woo! Johnny M. is watching in Winnipeg on Game Plus TV. He writes in and he says, Oliveira is back. Look out, Calgary. I think Winnipeg is such a veteran unit that all of this talk about, oh, Calgary this, Calgary that, if Calgary wins, there'll be this. I'm pretty confident that the Bombers are just sitting back and laughing at all of that. Nathan writes in, he says, love this shirt, Rod. What Nathan is that? It's actually a jacket. That's the one thing about coming from Florida. I see people ripping around here in moose jaw and muscle shirts, riding their bikes. I still got a jacket on. But I'm loving the temperature. But it ain't nothing. There's a severe heat warning on at home in Boca Raton today. Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes in and he says, Oliveira played last game. Well, there you go. Didn't seem to matter is what he's saying. Brandon Lewis writes in. Oh, here come all the comments in the final segment. Brandon Lewis. I don't know if he's a new viewer or not, but he's a new commenter. He says, hey, Arlen, tonight's game is the game of the year so far. Sold out stadium. It's going to be tough for the Stampeders. Thank God I read the game notes. Road teams are 12-11 in the CFL this year. I can't figure it out either. But the road teams have won more games. Will Calgary... Well, actually, going into last night, the home team won, so they're 12-12. There's been 24 games played, but if I have that right. Oh, Nathan says, this is the Nathan you met in the Starbucks from BC here. Hey, Nathan, thanks for continuing to watch and allowing us the opportunity to entertain you. Janice from Edmonton says, thanks for another great show, Rod. Have a great weekend, everybody, and enjoy the CFL games. BW writes in, says, back to North Dakota. Have a great weekend, everybody. It is a lot of fun just sitting here reading the messages from everybody. It's the way we started this show 1,537 episodes ago, 7 seasons ago, and it's the way we continue to plow on Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show. I'll get a note in there for the baseball fans. There are WCBL games tonight in Swift Current, Medicine Hat, Okotoks, Sylvan Lake, Lethbridge, and Energy City. And the All-Star game goes Saturday night in Okotoks, Alberta. I believe it's sold out, but if you want to go, call the Dogs, look it up online. Maybe there are some tickets available. It's one of the greatest sporting events you will ever experience, the WCBL All-Star game. Thanks to Henry Burris. Thanks to Jim Barker. Most of all, thanks to you all for tuning in and making this show possible. Thanks to our great sponsors. We'll see you again here on Monday, noon Eastern, right here on Game Plus TV.
Now I'm the whore and the pimp. That's where the money is.
How about that?
Bye.